Okay, so there's a lot of talk now with this whole McDonald's incident and homeless guy and attacking the McDonald's worker and everything. If you don't know, look it up. But there's a lot of talk from black women about black men and boys and protection. It's one of those things. I seen a video. I'm not even sure if there was any like black guys there. I think the manager was white. I don't know. I just kind of glanced at it, but I think the manager was white, and maybe there was a couple of employees afraid to lose their job or what have you, over something like that. It could have been. Maybe they were the ones who told their manager like they were trained to do. But either way, it seems like there's this general understanding that black men and boys are obligated to protect black girls, you know, more so than any other race, because I know every race, has that, but, being black, there's like there's a added factor to it, um, that I won't go into. But it's kind of, I don't know, weird. It's kind of like a strange burden that should not really be on men and boys in a modern society. I mean, we live in a society of, police protection. We live in a society where things are generally safe, Billy the Kid is not out there, and you have to challenge him at high noon or some shit like that. And we also live in a society where you can be punished. You can be punished for protecting somebody. You can go to jail for protecting somebody. An assault charge can be brought against you, things like that, depending on the extent that you protect that person. Who knows what happens. However, protecting somebody sometimes comes at a penalty. In this case, the young men, if they worked there, the penalty could have just simply have been losing their job. But and no one else in the situation was, really like obligated to protect or shamed for not doing it. The woman with the camera, and I agree that was a good move, holding the camera up, or else he would have got away with it. The woman with the camera, she wasn't obligated. She wasn't shamed for not jumping in, and I'm pretty sure the manager was white. He wasn't obligated. Well, actually, I'll take that back, because he was, and people are calling for him to get fired, and he should. To let the guy eat there is such a psychologically damaging thing, to where you're working in service to somebody, or in the presence of somebody who just assaulted you, right or wrong, was not a smart thing to do. So, yeah, he should just be fired for poor judgment. Anyway, um, protection. Black women lately have been demanding protection from black men, and they kind of use that whole Malcolm X thing. I'll do a video about Malcolm X and black women, but basically they like black women are the least protected group in the country, which is completely misinterpreted, and I'm not even sure what he meant when he said it, because at the time there was really only, in large numbers, two groups of women, and that was black and white. Asian women would come later, and but really there were only two groups of women at the time, especially in his area. And to say they're the least protected, it really means that they're just a little bit less protected than white women. Meaning, like, if white women were protected to a factor of 100, and black women were protected to a factor of 99, then they're the least protected in the country. Of the two, they're the least. It's kind of like you have a classroom full of two people, and then one person gets an A and the other person gets an A minus, and they say you had the lowest grade in the class. So yeah, I wish I could speak to him and ask him what exactly did he mean by that, but that term was taken, and I don't know, they kind of went with it. Anyway, so I just want to say this. I was making this video to say this. You, as a black man, are no more obligated to interfere in such situations than a black woman is obligated to sleep with you. Let me give you some perspective. Okay. If a black woman were to see a black man that looks like he hadn't had sex in a while, does she just go up and sleep with him? I mean, does she say, is she shamed for not doing it? Is she shamed for saying, oh, well, black men are the least sexed men in the country, so, you should be, like, giving up more pussy? Like, no one actually says that. No one really holds black women to do girlfriend things to men who are not their girlfriend simply because they're black. But people kind of hold black men accountable to do boyfriend things for women simply because they're black. I mean, protecting is something you do for your girlfriend. It's not really something you do for, a stranger. It's not, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm just saying that you should not feel shamed for not doing it. You're not really obligated to do it, I have a job. I'm not going to say what that is, but I think some of you already know. And if somebody were to ask me to do it and say, do that job that I get paid for them because, melanin, I would say no. No, I mean, if I liked a person and it was a project, I would use my discretion in determining if I should and shouldn't help a person with my particular skill set. And if I chose not to, I should not be shamed by anyone for doing something that it is not my job to do, or for not doing something that it is not my job to do. It is not any of those young men's job or obligation to interfere in this. Now, because we live in, a society, don't get me wrong, that you are morally obligated to call the police, which, or, alert the authorities. And they did. The immediate authority was the manager, who should have in turn called the police. So, once again, he should be fired. But, you're not obligated to just jump in and beat somebody up. Where does this thinking come from? It's weird. And, as I said in previous videos, it explains the violence in the community. You have this group of... Okay, let's reverse the gender. Well, let's just give an artificial scenario and show kind of like the mentality that it would breed. Let's just say black women were obligated to sleep. They were socially obligated to sleep with black men who have not had sex in a certain amount of time. So let's just say 3 days. If you see a black man and, he hasn't had sex in 3 days, you're obligated to fuck him, or at least give him a hand job or something. I don't know. You're obligated to sexually stimulate this man because he's black. Let's just say if the rule was placed on them that way. At that point, black men would behave much like black women. Black men would have no respect or value of black women because they're just something that fucks you every 3 days. You can't value that, and it would be nearly impossible for black men to to settle down, to get into a relationship. They would kind of walk around, just fucking whoever he likes, and saying, I don't need a woman. What do I need a woman for, So it would breed that mentality, when everything a woman does is given to you freely, then what purpose of getting your own personal woman would you have? So something to think about, So yeah, by just willy-nilly behaving this way, especially at your own risk, you are breeding a mentality that I am entitled to this, and that's pretty much that. You are supposed to provide this to me, and I do not have to do anything in particular for it. And because there's no consequence to me, I could behave any way I want, which explains a lot of the ill behavior, in the black community too. Once you have a group of people who, can walk around and do anything and somebody else will protect them for it, then they kind of turn into everything you see on Tommy Sotomayor's videos. So, that's my take on that. In conclusions, just to wrap it up, brothers, use your best judgment. I'm not saying do not protect a black woman or any woman. Use your best judgment. And if you choose not to, do not allow others to shame. Because trust me, those people who are shaming you will not care. They will not care what is the consequences of your protection at all. They will not put money on your books at all. You'll just be forgotten about, and then so use your judgment. So that's my video. Like and subscribe. I also feel it's important to point out that the whole police thing, most people just use police. That's their job. Their job is to protect and serve. But however, black women will only use police when their protectors go rogue. Like they'll call the police on their boyfriends, husbands, things like that. But situations like this, they, depend on community protection of simply being black, primarily. Now, there's a real interesting reason for this. This is a theory. It can be stated by individual cases in the past, but the reason for this is because cops have to there's a due process when it comes to, situations like this. They get both sides of the story, they determine who's right and wrong, and then they act accordingly. Sometimes courts gets involved, lawyers, things like that. So they don't want all that shit. They just want somebody to come and beat the shit out of anybody, no questions asked. And that is why they kind of seek this free community protection. An example comes to mind, the movie Baby Boy. Guy comes in that you invited, that you was writing in prison and shit. He kind of comes in, bogarts your home, and, he's on probation, parole, or whatever. He's on all kind of shit. And, you could call the police, but they might ask questions. They might say, wait a minute, you signed this form, or, you said he could stay, blah, 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 therefore he's here, you can't just kick him out. They may say a lot of rational things, but Jody and his friend would just come and shoot the nigga up. So, yeah, they avoid police contact, police protection, or whatnot, because they ask too many questions and they just want a nigga to get hurt or killed. Peace.